I'm Jay and I'm an addict. It is nice to be here from the West Coast and to introduce Jeff. Just want to say this because there may be a few cuss words in this intro. This will not make it to the speaker tape, so this will be a super spiritual share, I'm sure. Just saying. Fuckery. All right. You hear a lot in NA over and over and over about how there's the old timer who has just this amazing effect on the young timer. And that's what this is about. We keep what we have by giving it away. And but old timer to old timer, it's just as important to have someone that you can have a relationship with and it's eye to eye. Because after a certain amount of clean time, sometimes people expect old timers to show up as something surreal and that we really can't live up to, but we're expected to anyway. And we tell them we can't, we're not superhuman, we're not Clark Kent, we don't have like the Green Lantern power ring, but you're still expected to show up because you're spiritual, right? And then we have to, in Narcotics Anonymous, say if you're unspiritual for a moment, we have to claim your ever mortal soul. They say we're a little bipolar, and I say hell yes. So this relationship with Jeff is one of deep equality, where we can just be ourselves, and there's not a lot of fuckery involved. We can just say, this is what it is, this is how it is. How do you feel? What's your experience with that? And there's really about as no judgmentality as there could ever be. And I love him with all my heart, 360 degrees. Beautiful music, thank you. As we segue in. And but this is how, this thing about spirituality, I don't really see, because this is what we used to call it, was the spiritual speaker. That's okay, but really to me, the best way to practice spirituality is friendliness. This is a deep spiritual principle. And so I don't really want to be spiritual, and in my experience with Jeff, his goal is not to be spiritual. I've heard a bazillion words attached to Jeff: guru, spiritual, just love, Valhalla, Thor's hammer. I was like, Thor's hammer, what the fuck? But hey, this is NA, you can do that. And but these friendliness principles that come with Jeff, that I know for a fact he's got great experiences. The first would be grounded. Because in my relationship with Jeff, he always talks about, when he first meets with a young timer, getting them synced up with the idea of just being a grounded human being. Because when we're, coming in on the front end, it's like, what the fuck, that's drama. And, but compassion, empathy, kindness, generosity of heart and mind, deep sincerity, without the need to be perfectly competent all the time, but we can show up as we are. That's a beautiful thing. And in Jeff's path of doing this, it's been really awesome to observe someone who is just helped people wake up to their own beauty, not somebody else's version of what beauty is, but a personal sense in affirming that. There's not a lot of people who have that grace, dignity, skill, and ability. So with that, I introduce you to my amazing friend, Jeff E.
Addict named Jeff? There's a lot of people here. That's a lot to live up to. You probably, I probably should just be quiet and just let you imagine that whatever he said is true. And and go on from there. I really don't know what I'm going to share, so I won't keep you too long, I'm sure. I kept putting it off. I was asked a while ago, and I said it like you do, like when you have a case coming up. You just sort of act like it never happened, or it's not going to happen. Maybe there'll be an earthquake or something, So I didn't have to worry about it. And plus, I'm really busy, and so I had other things that were ahead of it. And I try to do everything one thing at a time. And so I was purchasing a building. I was going to be interviewed on TV. I had a training going on in a zoning issue. And after all that got cleared up, then this last week I've just been really messed up. But before then I had a lot of distractions, and I'll go into that. First I'd like to thank the committee for being you, for doing what you guys do every year, and how important it is for so many people in their recovery. They talk about I can stay clean because I know I've just gone to West Virginia, or West Virginia is coming, so I know I can get filled again. And I know it takes a lot of determination, steadfastness, compassion, and willingness to put these things on. And it's it's a wonderful service. I know it can be also a distraction. My home group put on a retreat for a few years. And at first we were great, it was all part of our service, and we were doing good, and we all had fun, and it was a lot of fun, but then it became work. And then once it became work, then all of a sudden distractions started happening, money, property, and prestige. People's feelings got hurt, and it is really hurting our home group. But unfortunately, I don't know. My home group is at a retreat center, and that's why we have a retreat there. And it's like a retreat, like and I'm going to try not to break the traditions too often. But if you hear me break some, and talk to me afterwards, or just don't throw shit at me because I have my ego. But at least to give you something to talk about on the way home. But at any rate, the retreat we have a lot of things you don't see at other retreat centers and things, or conventions. I really don't like conventions, but I love retreats where we can connect with each other. We have a lot of meditations and laughter yoga and things like that, angel whispering, things that certainly are on the line of, is this a tradition violation or not? But it's just the way you word it is what we figured out. But it is also helpful. But our retreat center is going away. They've gotten purchased out, and so we were not going to have that anymore. Although at my studio we're going to have a one-day thing. So, but I will miss that, and hopefully I can come to here more often because it was always the same time frame on the springtime. But I do want to honor the committee and the region for having this. So Sunday morning, hopefully we're all filled up. We've gotten our recovery in and in charge for another few months till next time. It's always, on the way home, it's a lot more spiritual than on the way to a convention, I think. On the way to it, you're excited and you're talking shit to each other, and then you hear the message, and then you try to incorporate that and try to bring that into your life, and hopefully that's what we do, because the steps, the meetings, the fellowship, and all that aren't. It's kind of like the finger pointing to the moon. That's the finger. It's not the moon. The moon is the recovery, and what you can get out of the signpost to that recovery, and that's the end goal. The steps are beautiful. The fellowship is beautiful. The workshops are great, and it all helps us remember what recovery is, our true self, what we were supposed to be, what we were brought here for. Any rate, I guess, because it is a Sunday morning spiritual thing, I'll talk a little bit about my coming to find Spirit and where that might be going, or my understandings of that. It was really nice this weekend. I had 4 of the 6 people who sponsor me all here this weekend. And then Jay's my spiritual advisor, my spiritual teacher. In the last few years, we've done some amazing stuff. But to connect with everybody, and I've had several sponsors, and I've moved on for various reasons, but we're all really close. And I treasure our friendships, and I treasure the time that we had together when we were working together. And, one reason or another, I had to move on, and I've had, people move on, and it's not like the friendship ends, and the things that I've learned from each one of them have brought me here. That is part of my spiritual awakening, is and also the people I sponsor. I have some sponsees here, and we've done some step work this weekend, and some amazing stuff. And in getting close with another human being, there's nothing like step work, And I've done so many steps here. I've done 11 step and 12 step. I did 11 step yesterday with somebody, and going out in the woods and being with nature and talking about how we touch spirit and how we meditate. It's just a wonderful, wonderful way to spend a day. When I was growing up, my parents never really didn't go to church or anything like that, so I don't have that baggage of that some people have, that where religion has hurt them. And but my mother was really into the occult kind of things. She liked astrology and telepathy and people who can see in the future and all that kind of thing. And it brought me to an understanding that there was something else out there. There was different dimensions that I couldn't see, which was good and bad. In one way, it showed me that there was something bigger than me, some sort of God. But then again, I wanted to see what those dimensions were. And that became a problem. In the early 70s, there was because of that, we looked at, different ways of looking for spirituality. And there was a TV show on that was a person who did yoga every week. And yoga is not a tradition violation. We decided yesterday that it's okay, because it's not a religion. It's a philosophy, and it won't send you to hell. And but there was somebody who was who did yoga, and so I started doing yoga. And this was before I really took off with drugs or anything like that. And I learned to meditate at the same time. And it was really, a time when I was touching spirit. I was going in the right direction. I felt really good about myself and about spirituality. And then the Beatles went to India. Not that that's an outside issue, but so if you got a scorecard going on, that's two. But this rock group went to India. And they were, and they met the guru there and all that, and they were talking about, LSD and things like that, and so I, wanting to live that lifestyle that I heard on records and things, I thought that was real. I started experimenting with, LSD and and that kind of thing, thinking that it was going to take me to a place where I can meet God, to meet those different dimensions that I was talking about. And maybe it opened it up. I don't know. We don't have any opinion on drugs, really. We just have an opinion on how to stay off drugs. But there's a lot of spirits out there, and all of them aren't nice. And there was a lot of confusion. And so, in a way, it opened me up to different possibilities, but it was all a lie. It wasn't real spirituality. And at that time, I'd get like these spiritual books because I liked the pictures, like people with like a bunch of heads and arms and shit, And I didn't actually read them, but I'd hold them up like I did, like I was some sort of spiritual person, And I still meditated and stuff like that. But smoking weed and watching the sunset isn't the same as like watching the sunrise without anything in you. And again, it wasn't real. It felt real at the time, and it did take me to some place, but it wasn't the right place. I just I always mention that because I know there's a lot of people or a few people. I know a lot of people use drugs for a lot of different reasons, but mine was a spiritual one at first. However, by the time I got done, I was doing things that was apparent that no God would want you to be doing. Stealing every day and lying and manipulating and the things that we do. And that is the step I had to take before I got to the first step. And it took years to come to that understanding. Because I thought God wanted me to get high, it was a perfect excuse to go on further and dig in, and get really confused with things. Especially when I don't know, just the crazy things I did. So at any rate, it got to a point where, like I said, I was turning away from, if there was a God, I didn't think he wanted me around or wasn't looking, or, I was starting to believe that maybe the whole thing was, in my imagination. And, that was like a really lonely time for me, because like even in the midst of all, when I was doing a lot of hallucinogens and things like that, I felt like there was a God present, and I think that's what kept me alive. And but once I was doing more of narcotics and having to do other things, then there was no God involved, and so I was alone. And luckily, when I came into the rooms, I came into the detox. I had a DUI when I was 19, and I went to they sent me to the other fellowship, and there was an old guy, probably about my age, and he he told me I probably wasn't an alcoholic, but I should probably watch it, But he had this twinkle in his eye, and he looked at peace. And I thought, well, maybe someday, I could get there, because I was not in peace at the time. That was very far from it. So, at any rate, but other than that, I had no idea that any kind of dope fiend could get clean. I knew we could change drugs, and that was my solution usually. When the hallucinogens were too hot, too much, I was getting a little crazy with that. I was like, try something else for a while, and until I got, obsessed to that, so that they turned on me, and I'd try something else. And then, none of my friends got clean. I did hear of a guy named Danny who was clean someplace, but I just thought he was like some sort of myth guy. People were just making shit up. But so I didn't know anybody who actually stayed clean or anything like that. So my solution was at the time was get married to somebody who was didn't use. She used, but not like I used. And so I thought that being married would slow that down. And turned out, the opposite. She started using more than me once I introduced her and all that. So. But at any rate, we got to rehab, got to detox, and I had the H&I people came in and was the other fellowship. But at any rate, they talked about Narcotics Anonymous. And I thought there was hope. We went back to our little detox area, our smoking area. They had smoking areas then. And we all, one night we all sang gospel. There was a dude that is in there who played the organ at a church or something. And so we all, all these dope fiend people, I could hardly keep my head up. But we're all doing all these gospel songs and things like that. And it was like one of those really bizarre things, midnight choir things. But I felt like after that night I went back to my room and prayed, and that was one of those times, those turning points in my recovery, that I thought that maybe there might be something else after all. So I was there for 6 days. On my 5th day, I didn't sleep the whole time because I was coming off of methadone and other, things. So it keeps you up. And so I was walking the halls and everything like that. But I was doing a little bit better. I met one guy in there who went to NA, and I knew he was a dope fiend. His name was Harry. And he didn't have anything profound for me to hear. He just told me, maybe I should go in and, they had a little laundry area. Maybe you should go get your clothes cleaned or something. That was really the only profound thing he said. But but it was practical, because at that time I didn't care about, the way I looked or anything like that, and I was really dirty. And I could also tell he had peace in his eyes. And I knew he was a dope fiend. A dope fiend can tell a dope fiend. And he was a dope fiend, and he was happy. And I knew he was clean. He was a janitor, and I figured, well, maybe I can get clean and become a janitor or something. And everything would be cool. So it gave me hope, So anyway, after the 5th day, and I was in there, and this guy came in from Chicago, this heroin addict, and everybody told me I got to go talk to him because he was like what I looked like 5 days earlier. And, now I got 5 days clean, so so I became the spokesperson. And so I did my first 12-step call. I went and told him it's going to be okay. I got through it. And and that's really set the tone for the rest of the recovery. When I give, then all of a sudden I don't feel the pain that I'm going through. Those 5 days of walking the hallway and feeling like my bones are going to come out of my skin, it made it worthwhile. And I never want to forget how that felt. I never want to forget how the hopelessness of not having any place to go afterwards was like. Because I didn't have any place to go. Nobody trusted me or liked me. And, my family didn't want me around anymore. So I went back to the dope house where I was living at, and where it was a shooting gallery. They were buying and selling all day. And I was just hanging on. The first day I came out, I went to a meeting, and the people who I was living with drove me to the meeting, and they dropped me off and tell me not to listen, that they're just going to mess me up. And but they would take me every day because there's when we're dope fiends, but we're not bad people. They wanted the best for me. They didn't care, if I was buying or, they certainly weren't going to offer me any because it was, everybody was just trying to stay well at that time. And so it wasn't like they were, just asking me to try this and all like that, which I used to do when I'd drop pick people up out of care units and things. I'd always have drugs for them, when it came out, being a good friend. But these guys weren't like that, they were really helpful, doing the best they could. And they'd taken me to meetings, but first they had to get off first, all that, but it was that lifestyle. And then it was, at the time, I would leave this house and everybody was miserable. Everybody was talking about everybody else and all this negativity, and just wanting, it was just all this darkness. And I'd go to a meeting and everybody would be happy. It was like Wizard of Oz, where it was like black and white and then all of a sudden it became color. It was just like that, the contrast. And it was like, which way do I want? Do I want to live in the color world or do I want to live in the darkness? And, I wanted what people, I wanted to be in the color. And so that was really helpful for me in my early recovery. I don't suggest it to newcomers. We say stay away from people, places, and things for a good reason. But that was my story, and I always had to add that because, people who are new, you're going to go back to where you came from. Whatever your reasons why you're using before you came into treatment are still there, and it's not like you got clean and the world changed. The world is still the same. So at any rate, I went to one of my first NA meetings was West Side Story in Cincinnati, and there was this big tree there, and they were meeting outside, and this guy was talking to this other guy, and he was talking about doing editorial work for a book, and I thought that was kind of cool, like a local guy writing a book. Here it was Alden was talking to somebody about, he was a world lit guy, and he was talking about the Just for Today. And it was just about ready to come out, and he was just finishing it up. But I didn't know, I thought that was cool. A local guy wrote some book and everything. And so I didn't know the process or anything like that. But I got a home group and I started meeting people, and they made me the floor sweeper was my duty, and I think it's always important to have a purpose in life. And my purpose was to keep the floors clean on Just for Today meeting on Ray Street, and that became my home. It was like people leave shit on the floor. It's like, hey, I'd like, it was like I kept the place nice. And it was like they were fucking with my home. So I started meeting people, and in that meeting they always talked about service being the best kept secret in NA. If you want to stay clean, get involved with service. So as soon as I could, I started doing the H&I and everything like that. Like I said, I did methadone for a number of years, and every time I go to the methadone clinic, I never heard nothing about recovery. I never heard anybody say, there's help anywhere, anything like that. They just took my money and then that was like real in slavery. Is going to the methadone clinic or any drugs, any addiction is all about slavery. You have to do what you have to do to get there, or get your drugs every day. So there's no freedom in using. Recovery is all about freedom. We have the freedom to do whatever we want to do. We can use if we want. We have the freedom to use. Of course, we have to pay the consequences, and there's a lot of responsibility with freedom. But at any rate, after I got clean for 6 months, I started a meeting at a methadone clinic, and it was called the True Freedom Group of Narcotics Anonymous. I took the meeting to the area, and the area chair was just this beautiful woman that I thought was like the queen of NA. I didn't go to area, and brought my, they're all really welcoming. I didn't know about area at that time, but they're like, they made me feel really good about starting the meeting. So I recently started a yoga studio that's all dedicated to recovery. We have meetings afterwards, and I call that my studio True Freedom Recovery Yoga, off of that first meeting that I started. And I truly believe that recovery is all about freedom of one sort or another. And all the steps are pointing us toward deeper and more open freedom. The first step, not having the freedom of never having to use it again. The second step, having the freedom of not having to know everything. The third step, having the freedom of living life and allowing life just to happen. In the third step, with that freedom, it's not my life, it's just life. And there's a big difference of that. With my life, I'm holding, I'm controlling, I'm making things happen. When I'm just living life, life unfolds itself. And that's really where my spirit is taking me. That I'm allowing, like being up here. The first time I came to West Virginia and somebody was doing this, I was like, well, how in the hell is he standing up there with all these people telling their story? But now life has brought me here. So it's funny how that happens. And so it's deeper freedom. And then in the fourth step, there's the freedom of knowing who I am and breaking through the denial. And the freedom after that, is why recovery works, is telling somebody else. Bringing what I know from the darkness of my own mind and bringing it to the light to somebody else and to the God of my understanding. And of course, all the rest of the steps, the freedom of not having to act or the freedom of seeing my defects and seeing how they're affecting me and everybody else. And the freedom in the seventh step of knowing that there's a God that can, or a higher consciousness, however you want to look at that, that can help me through that. So part of my thing was part of my service commitment, I became policy chair of the area. And then I did that like 3 times. And I was policy chair of the region, and I was the chair of the region and all that kind of thing. So I had a lot of knowledge of the traditions, and and I used to be more militant about them, and things like that. But I've softened since then. Because when we're holding on to the traditions, we're making sure that everybody follows them, and they are important. But if we're grasping too much, then we don't have that freedom for interpretation, for the freedom of expression. Any rate, because I did have knowledge of traditions, and people would ask me about traditions. One of my sponsors who was here yesterday wanted to work the traditions, and there was no working guide at that time. I guess they're working on it now. So I wrote him the traditions, like we used to have step guides, where it was like one paper of 20 questions, and that was a step guide. I did that for each tradition. And it was a wonderful exercise for me in that I was figuring out how he would learn best the traditions. And the traditions, aren't just about our groups. They're about how we relate to each other and how we interact. A group can be of two people. And if we, utilize the traditions in our life, we can get along with other people. I forgot to tell you, that person, the area chair, was my now wife. And we've been together for a long time. And we stay together by the traditions. We work our traditions in our life. We have group conscience often. Our common welfare is determining on our own recovery. And, I told her to call her sponsor once. So we each work our own recovery, but by working our recovery, it is better for the whole. So at any rate, so I wrote out those tradition worksheets, and it got me to a point where I enjoyed that. And I took those and I worked them with some sponsees, and it's always really good discussion on the traditions. And if you haven't worked the traditions, you might want to take a look at that, especially since the world is coming out with the guide soon. But until then, mine's probably better anyway. So if you want, let me know. You can work mine and say they just don't listen. But the process works. One time I decided I'd see if how the process works and how the individual addict can affect the whole world. So I decided I'd see if it would. So I came up with a motion that I thought might work. I made a motion to my home group that the World Service Committee make posters like they have for the steps and traditions, only for service things like service messages. And so I brought that to my home group, and my home group said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's take it to area. I took it to area, and area, of course I was there to convince them, but they decided that was a good idea. So they said, let's take it to region. We took it to region. It went to the region. They thought it was a good idea. They took it to the world. And so my motion from my home group, the Just for Today group, made it to World Service Conference. And then they sent it back and said they want more clarification. And I didn't, that wasn't the point. I didn't actually want it to happen. I didn't want somebody else to do it. I just wanted to see if the process would work, if a single addict could influence the world. And we do. We have that power. There was a group that came to Cincinnati a while ago, and they're stuck on the fourth edition of the basic text. And it's really sad that they have this division that it's us against them and things like that. Because in Narcotics Anonymous, it's all about us, and maybe the world could work in a more efficient manner or something like that. But we can change that if we need to. And we are the world. We are the people. On everybody. But anyway, I enjoyed writing out their traditions and things like that, and so I decided I like to write, and when I graduated from high school, I was in the lowest percentile. They just got rid of me. They didn't. Maybe there'd be less pot sold in the school or something. I don't know. But I just barely made it through school. And then after 5 years clean, I went back to college, and I graduated in the highest percentile. They gave me a special thing and said I was like Magnum cum laude or something. Yeah. And so it was like, I'm the same person as I was in high school. In college, I just happened wasn't high. and I came to class, and I listened and I took notes. And that was the only difference. I'm the same person. I'm not any more intelligent than I was then, but I did, and it was a great accomplishment. But at any rate, one of my favorite classes was the English class. I took it, me and Sandra took it together. And I really enjoyed the writing and things like that. So after working the traditions worksheets, I started, I had an idea. I went through yoga training, and again, we decided that's not breaking traditions to talk about. But so I went through yoga training, and each time they were talking, I kept thinking, that sounds like recovery. What you're saying is recovery related, and I felt such, like I needed to share this with other people, because it was deepening my spirituality. It was deepening the way I understood the God of my understanding. So I wanted other people to know what that was like. So I started writing what started to be a paper, and it started to be a work guide for the 4-step. Because I've done the 4-step numerous times. I've done it in different ways. And all of them took me in a different place and different, deeper. But I wanted to correlate what I've learned into the 4-step. So it started out to be a paper, kept writing, and did the step with my sponsor. And it turned out, 5 years later, it came a book. And, I'd write just a little bit every day, and that became a big part of my program, is dwelling deeper into my spirit and how I can talk about that. So like all my service commitments, it kept me clean, and it brought me into a deeper place. But finally, after 5 years of writing and 2 years of editing, it came out, got published, and will be available. Not that I'm not promoting, I'm just saying it's part of my story. Soon. But I got it in the mail, the first copy, and this is why I'm sharing it. And my mother died 10 years ago or so, and I was really close to my mother, and she was one of the only people who believed in me, even when I was doing all crazy things. And she said one of the hardest things she ever did was I was at the Justice Center, and they said they'd release me if I just had a place to go. And so they called my mother and said that, do I live there? And she heard where I was, and she said, if he's in jail, then keep him there. That's where he belongs. And so, see, I told you, if the speaker don't cry, then it just ain't worthwhile. It's kind of a waste of time, isn't it? But at any rate, so my mother, it was really hard, and I was really close to my mother. And she was voted valedictorian when she was in school. And she watched me go through all of school, in high school and things, and being such a not very, into it. and the frustration of all those years of me using and wondering where I was and, staying up all night and things like that. And holding this book, I just could feel her.
Love you, Jeff. You're fucking awesome.
And that's all I wanted to hear, All my life is just that you're okay. And I was never able to do that. I was never able to pull that off. I was never able to give them pride. And, she died, but, I don't know what happens when you die. I don't know where you go. But if her spirit's there, her spirit's in that book, So, anyway, I'm going to talk about something else. So I started this yoga school. It's all about recovery. And we have meetings afterwards, and it's open to all fellowships. And in a way, that's breaking traditions and all that, a lot of different ways. But we don't do the reading, so it's not an NA meeting. It's not an AA meeting. It's not an R&I meeting. It's just a meeting, and we just say our name and we say we're in recovery, and that and we just share. But you can tell who's sharing. They don't have to say I'm an AA or NA or whatever A. The way we share is just so much deeper and so much to the point. It just, for a while I had a lot of people, I don't know, it's turning out really good, and it's interesting to watch unfold. But we're having this family program, and this is what I'm really excited about. And Sandra came up with this, but we're going to not, because a lot of people say they want to come to the yoga thing and do the meetings, but they got kids, and what do you do with the kids? So we're not going to have a babysitting service. We're not going to drop off their kids and go to a different meeting or something like that. But we're going to watch their kids while they're doing the yoga, and give them the things that we didn't, the tools that we never had. Like when I was young, I didn't know how to interact with people. I didn't know, about bullying or how to be a part of. So we're going to teach them how to meditate. We're going to teach them sound therapy and dancing and all these things. So to break the cycle, because we come into the rooms, and I had a son when I came in, and I wasn't a good parent, and most people aren't, because we're not really wired for that. So we have to break the cycle someplace, and we're hoping that this will be a small, planting seeds that maybe the next generation doesn't have to go through what we're going through or went through. So anyway, that's where I'm, what we're doing now, and it's real exciting. And then also in this building we have therapists, and we have a person do different kind of modalities of healing, an Ayurvedic lady, and we want a massage person and things like that. So it's all different forms of healing, kind of like a daycare for addicts. But, not a clubhouse, not where you drink coffee and talk about people and things, whatever, but someplace where you actually can get healed. So I'm going to wrap up pretty soon because everybody's leaving. And I understand, because I have a busy life. But do take what you got this weekend, and and not just hold on till next time we get together, but take what you got and incorporate it in your life. Become the person who you were supposed to be. Become the person that you've always known you to be. Allow your light to shine. And we all have one. Sometimes our disease darkens our spirit, darkens our light, but the light is there, still there. I know my defects often want to cloud my light, but the light still shines. Just like today's a little. Yesterday it was like really cloudy out, but the sun was still there. The defects, our disease, is the clouds. Our recovery is still there. Let your light shine. Move the stuff out of the way so your recovery is so bright it attracts newcomers to come in. I can't think of anything else, so I'll pass.